Peace. Today's mathematics is knowledge culture, which are the numbers 1 and 4. And today I wanted to build about the knowledge culture or the 14th degree in our 1 to 40s, which asks the question, who are the 85%? Now, the answer to that degree is they are the uncivilized people, poisonous animal eaters, slaves from a mental death and power, those who do not know the true and living God or their origin in this world, who worship what they know not, who are easily led in the wrong direction, but hard to be led in the right direction. So when you look at that degree, it only simply gives you a summary description of who this segment of the population is. That could be very shallow and topical if you don't unpack that answer to further explore other aspects of who they are. And the only way that you're able to unpack that is asking further questions. You have to ask what, when, where, and how. In regards to what, you have to ask, well, what distinguishes a person from being uncivilized from a person who is civilized? What is poisonous animal, let alone a poisonous animal eater? What does it mean to be a slave from a mental death and power, or not knowing who the true and living God is and worshiping what you know not and being easily led in the wrong direction and hard to be led in the right direction? What does it mean to not know your origin in this world? That's just asking a question, what, to further unpack that degree. Now, if you move into the question of where, that's a question of position and place. So where would you find this segment of the population? Are they in rural areas? Are they in suburban areas? Are they in urban areas? Where do you find them at in your community? When you're thinking about place as it relates to institutions, businesses, organizations, and you look at an organizational structure, where do you find them? Are they in senior management? Are they not in senior management? And you look at a local government, are they in elected positions or non-elected positions? Are they civil servants? Are they in other different aspects of your community? Where are they? Who doesn't answer that question? So in order to unpack it, you also have to ask where. When is another important question to ask. When do you determine somebody is uncivilized? At what moment? Or when do they become of the 85%? Are they born that way? Is there a certain period in their life cycle where they transition into being a slave from a mental death and power, who do not know their origin in this world and worship what they know not? When do you say, okay, they easily led, as opposed to being hard to be led in the right direction? Or, when? That's an important question to ask as well. Just like how. How is a question of function. How is a person a slave from a mental death and power? How is that poison? In addition to a poisonous animal eater. How is very important. So all of those questions help us further unpack that degree. And if we just stuck with who they are, we will never get a comprehensive perspective of the 85%. And the more we start to explore those different layers of that degree, we also begin to realize that, there's a very thin line which distinguishes who we think people are from who people actually are. And in order to even see that, we have to ask those further questions, starting with ourselves, because we may have had some very high expectations of who we are, where we might have eaten a certain type of food, but then we realize later on, like, that's poison in here. That's why they don't have that in certain type of foods over in Europe. They're banned over in Europe, but over here, I thought they was okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, you begin to learn different things. So you become more humble and realize that, I need to be more empathetic to this large segment of the population who I have categorized as a certain way, because there's a very thin line which distinguishes many of us who claim to have knowledge of self and be conscious and aware or woke or whatever we want to call it, from people who we have oftentimes categorized or discriminated against or even disassociated from, because we have just simply looked at who they are when it came to that degree, instead of further exploring all those other aspects and layers to unpack who someone is. So it also enables us to become more aware of how to meet people with the elements of our culture. And that's knowledge culture. Because some of us have this very lofty idea of who we are, as if people need to come to us, as opposed to meeting people where they are. And in order to do that, we have to have an anthropological approach towards people in terms of the way in which they live. It's very difficult to be able to show people the value or the power of your way of life if you're not building the type of relationships or trust between people where they're comfortable and open enough for you to be able to share with them. But if you have this mentality like, oh, I know who you are, and not really explore those different aspects of where they are, or what they are, or when they became a certain way, or how they do things a certain type of way, then we will be ill-equipped to reach people. And that is what our responsibility is as being civilized people. And that's ultimately power. And that is the knowledge and the culture that we say that we possess. So I will, this was inspiring, it was empowering, it was educational. It just gave those of you some insight into that knowledge culture degree and the importance of being able to unpack it. As long as we just look at it and say who they are or who we are, and never further explore the what, the where, the when, and the how, we're not going to have a very comprehensive perspective of what that is, or the proper empathy and humility to reach people where they are. So, peace.